I just finished Vlad Love episode 7 through 12. It just came out today, so let's talk about it. So I've done a previous video on episodes 1 through 6. So this will be a video on episode 7 through 12, and just I guess my overall thoughts about the end of it. Right away, this is a comedy, but people, because of Oshi, who created it, are expecting something that's deep. And no, this is a comedy. Like, don't expect this. The goal of this anime is to make you laugh, not to be deep. If you want to be deep, look at episode 9. That's your deep episode right there. That one is reminiscent of Angel's Egg, and even the dialogue towards the end, they kind of play on some dialogue from Angel's Egg. But look at this as what it is. And that's a comedy show, and it's a good comedy show. It's just that a lot of its jokes, you have to really pay attention, and also a lot of the jokes are references to old things. So like the age group of the 30 plus audience will understand this much better than like the teenager or the 20s audience. You got to keep that in mind. And so episodes, it was very funny though. I was laughing a lot. There's one particular episode from here that was really funny, that stood out from the other ones. So episode 7 starts with the filming of a movie. Bamba takes the audience to a flashback from a week ago to show what happened, because it was a complete disaster. There were little funny details like Katsumi taking exaggerated rhino-like steps in the school. Yeah, that's the big buff guy that's obsessed with Mai. It's funny because when he walks, they give him like these very exaggerated sounding steps. As Maki announces the game plan for the production of the film, it starts getting to her head and she starts acting a bit irrational. Yeah, she's not the best director, but she's also dealing with not the best cast. The first day on the set seemed like a disaster. Masumi, because of his obsession of being with Mai, goes off script and stomps Bamba out and kidnaps Mai on a motor scooter. Chihiro had conveniently put a self-destruct feature on the scooter and pushes the button to blow him up. So it was a failure on day 1. And day 2, you can already see how bad it is before they even start by seeing that Mai's stunt double is Katsuna in a wig. That's the buff guy, just now I'm using his other name. So Bamba even questions as to what is the point of a stunt double if the car isn't even moving for the scene. Maki says she doesn't want to put her actors in danger, but according to Bamba, she's not making any sense. It turns out it was dangerous because Maki had all these effects that she wanted to use that blew up the place and put Katsuna in a coma. The production fails on day 2, and Maki has this creepy dream while they all sleep. So this episode, it alternates between funny and creepy, then funny and creepy, and then funny and creepy. It's kind of interesting. On day 3, Katsuna is in a coma because of the explosion, so they decide to film the scenes without him first. This day was even worse. The cat for the scene where Maki wanted to drink milk from Mai's leftover breakfast ran away. The replacement cat wouldn't cooperate and wouldn't drink. Some of the takes was just the cats messing around. Mai drops the plates at some point. Kaoru tries to cosplay, but it doesn't work out. Bamba, for whatever reason, opens the door instead of Mai. There's a scene where Chihiro is posing, and then in the last one, the cat's attacking the person that caught it. So the production ends in shambles again. In day 4, the production sets a dance scene. Katsuna gets too into Mai and starts hugging her hard, crushing her. Everyone tries to stop him and fails, but Chihiro brings the big shot and buries like 7 of them in the Katsuna. It was supposed to take him out for a week, but he was recovered by the next day. On the 5th day of the shooting, Maki alters the final scene and gives Banba a prop gun. It's funny how when she points the gun, her hand in the gun is live action while she's still animated. This has already become a meme. I've already seen it on A. People, the whole delete this meme. So that they picked up on that one quick. The film was a failure, but it was creepy and borderline unsettling how it turned out to look. Maki accepts the failure and continues to go on as she kept doing this episode about the importance and function of a director. Episode 8. So it was, great funny episode. Episode 8. Chihiro opens the episode by talking to herself, explaining she is unsatisfied with her life. Banma hears her, and they eat a bunch of instant noodles together. A quote I liked here is, "Nothing's more expensive than free." So I I've heard quotes. I've heard quotes like that before. It's a nice way to trigger the gotcha communities. She shows Banba some mysterious blood-labeled memories. Afterwards, Banba tells the cast about it, and they decide to investigate the school after Chihiro left to see what she is hiding and who she really is. So the cast is investigating her because they find it suspicious that she has that memory blood, whatever. The infiltration fails, as Chihiro expected it. The Frankenkun part was random, and it's funny how they explain he'll be back in episode 10. Yeah, that was just like a gag, and they threw a random character that's gonna appear later on just for laughs. Chihiro pulls out the blood, and the students ask her to tell them more about it, but they asked her like in a funny way. The way they asked her to tell the story was funny, like it was essential to them growing up and becoming mature adults. I found that funny. So she tells the story, and there's like a Casablanca quote in it, kind of made me cringe. So she was with a man that while dying from his wounds said the name of another woman that he loved. I suppose Chihiro thought it was her, but I had already seen it was coming. Oh, but yeah. So when you're watching this, you can tell that the man's not gonna say her name. So it turns out she had a horrible time with men in the past, even repeating the same mistakes. It runs almost like a visual novel. Yeah, at this point, the animation kind of turns into a lot of visual novel type things, but it's still beautifully animated or beautifully drawn and all that. Some beautiful effects. During most of the episode, the kids just want her to get to the story of the blood. And Chihiro says she took the blood of those who wasted her youth. But by the time she tells the cast, they were all asleep, and she slaps them all awake. At the end, she says everyone has a secret, and not necessarily just one, and she shows a capsule in her hand. I don't think they ever explained that, so it's still a secret. Something that could be done in season 2, I suppose. And now, episode 9. Now, this was probably my favorite episode. This is Oshi going back to Angel Egg, but they explain at the end that he explains at the end of this episode what inspired it, and it's a mixture of things, and I typed them down. So this episode gets really strange. There is martial law, and the military has arrived. Bama gets stung by a jellyfish and is desperate for a doctor as she believes she is bleeding to death. The military is playing games with her, and she ends up on a train with a girl wearing that fox mask from Textile Lies. Or at least that's what it reminds me of. It's probably from a reference to something else also. For whatever reason, there's people hanging off the telephone poles in the background. That was not scary, but that was a creepy scene where Banba's in the train and it's dark. There's like a little girl with a mask talking to her, telling her strange things. In the background, there's a lot of telephone poles with bodies hanging off of them. And it's like a red background, so it was creepy, but it looked pretty cool. The train ends up dropping her off where she started, and she decides to search for the entire town for a doctor. She hears of a person, just like her, that is in the town. She even forgets about the doctor because she wants to find this person. The kids playing the card games talk to her about past lives, and how she shouldn't pursue that person, or something terrible will happen. She runs into some of the girls taking a bath, but they are acting strange. Yeah, it's like unsettling, I guess you could say, the way they were acting. The episode starts to get darker and darker and creepier. Eventually, Banma ends up in a bar with Mai, who was sold to work her by her dad. It is according to Mai herself. The show here makes fun of how it makes obscure references. Yeah, so we've always been, there's been talk all over the place that this anime does very obscure references, and they're even like breaking the fourth wall to say, yeah, we're self-aware that this is happening, it's on purpose. Then Mai says she's looking for something that starts with the letter B. Of course it's blood, but Banba thinks that it's boner, and they censor that too. At the end, Banma gets to Chihiro, who performs surgery on Banma successfully. But the way they portray the surgery is like they slept with each other, so it was weird. Banma ends up putting on that strange mask again, and rides on a vehicle with Mai. So they say the episode was a homage to, and this is what the episode itself tells you at the end, that it's a homage to Suge Yoshiharu, and the dialogue and setting were inspired by Screw Style, Master of the Gensekan, In, Red Flowers, and The Girl of Mokiria. So this is an extremely artistic episode. I really, really enjoyed that one. So those who are looking for something deep, this is your deep thing right here. If people keep crying about that, but even then, it's still about the comedy. But it just touched upon some interesting things. Though a lot of it was very abstract. Episode 10. So this episode was hilarious. There were so many funny parts in this one. I couldn't even. I didn't want to type them all down. It's better if it's just too much going on. For example, well, they introduced the Frankenstein character. So the Frankenstein character is an old character that had proposed to Mai in the world of vampires. He proposed to a vampire by offering them a rose, and that's what the vampire did. And Mai did it just on impulse. I mean, didn't even think about it, which kind of upsets Banma. Like, what? It doesn't make sense. And he was being modified throughout all those years or decades or whatever, and he was given like different parts of the brain from different people. He was given like the legs of an athlete. He was giving genitalia that they were saying. You have to watch that part, and it's funny because they also reference Initial D. Now, I am a big fan of Initial D, so I thought that was a cool reference. How they're saying that he's like a professional street racer, even though he realistically wouldn't fit in the car, but and then the big buff guy is like jealous because he's Mai's fiance, so he demands to have this guy like castrated, which, which was funny. And there's a part at the end where Mai is with Banba, and Mai is sleepy, and she actually calls Banma daddy, and Banma's like, "What, daddy?" And she tells Banma that she feels lonely in the closet and wants her to get in there. Now it's obvious that Banma likes Mai. It's more than obvious. They make it even more obvious in these last episodes. But it was kind of always obvious either way. And there's also a part here where she's unbuttoning her shirt and she can't do it, and she asks Banma to do it, and Banma it's like it looks like she's deliberately trying to seduce Banma, but she's actually half asleep, and Banma's getting like very shy and nervous. And the Frankenstein character had been shut off because he runs on getting plugged in and charged and all that. But he somehow got struck by lightning, and he ends up at Banba's because he's looking for Mai, and Mai is undressed, and they censored it here, and they end up escaping, and the Frankenstein monster ends up doing a King Kong and jumping all over the structures, and another thing that made me laugh here is the music, because Banba calls Chihiro and says like, what do we do? And the music is like changing depending whether it's Banba talking or it's Chihiro on the phone. So it was like a weird thing that was amusing to see. And yeah, it was a really funny episode. I didn't write down all the jokes, but it was hilarious. Episode 11, they go to a cursed beach, it seems. There's a lot of references to slasher and other horror films like Jaws and Predator. Yeah, they go deep with the references here. They even tell you what they are. And the show once again jokes about how it's self-aware about copyright laws and how they're gonna get in trouble if they don't stop doing that. And Nami is the one that goes missing after they go for a swim. Her clothes are found, and the guys think she went skinny dipping and state they want to go looking, though it's obvious why, because they're perverts and they get beaten. The way they rush the fish also. So in this island is a fish that eats people, and they end up finding it at night. And the Frankenstein character tries to beat it, but it runs out of steam. And then the big buff guy tries, he gets stomped right away. But then they end up defeating it. But it's funny how they kind of just rush the fish and start beating it up. And turns out that Nami was there. She did get eaten, but she just kind of walks out of the stomach as if, it was no big deal. And it's funny because it turns out that she is a fisherman's daughter, at least according to Chihiro. Because not that she got eaten, but that she was able to survive in the stomach. So then the old lady that has the end there reveals that she is the woman from the legend, from the hundreds of years old legend. And they end up just leaving at that point. So they're trying to go on vacation, but it didn't end well. Now, the last episode is about Mai. In the first couple minutes, it's just a barrage of references to classic films. And this one's about, they focus more on the movie Interview with a Vampire. And the cast decides to actually do an interview with a vampire. and they have Mai go and talk, but Mai seems to not want to talk about her past and just kind of says, "I don't remember, I don't know." But Chihiro thinks that it's trauma. That's why she doesn't remember. So they hypnotize Mai against her will, and it makes Banba mad. But they tell Banba, like, you like Mai so much, but yet you should try to get to know more about her because you don't know anything about her. So in the interview, Mai, while being hypnotized, talks that she suffered trauma as a child because she was hunted there was a witch hunt going on, and they did this thing where the dialogue is straight up referencing Angel's Egg, because Angel's Egg is a movie about made by a Angel Egg is a movie about a man who is losing his faith in religion, and it's a scene where the little girl is telling the boy that she hears the egg, that she can feel it moving, that she and the boy is telling her no, it's not. He makes up excuses that it's something else. So basically, what that scene was trying to portray is that the faith people have in religion is just fantasy. It's just other things that they're just saying, oh, it must be religion. So in this one, they do it where Mai and her dad and her mom are being chased by witch hunters, and there's or I guess you could say vampire hunters, and there's people dying all over the place. There's fire everywhere, and Mai's telling her dad, like, there's a fire going on, and he's like, oh no, it's just the sunset, and Mai's like, oh, I hear screaming in the background, and he's like, oh, it's just the crows, and so it's a direct reference to the style of dialogue that Angel Egg had, and Angel Egg had almost no dialogue, so it's easy to spot it. And her mom ends up getting caught by the vampire hunters, and they kill her in front of Mai. And so her dad and her end up escaping, and they end up just living through the historic timeline of world history, living in Europe, going from Europe to the New World, having slaves. I guess they brought that up because it was a reference to, I think, Gone in the Wind. And so they're learning about Mai. They're filming the documentary, and at the end, they decided to not air it. That it was too much of a personal story. It's better to protect Mai and not do it. So at the very end, Mai is already woken up. She's dancing with some of the cast, and Banba, and I think it was Maki, the director, and Chihiro are just kind of relaxing at the bleachers, just talking about how they're not going to do that. And Banba gets up, and the cast is walking away. Chihiro stays behind, and she kind of gives like a warning. I mean, she thinks about it. She doesn't tell Banba, but she's thinking to herself, she's gonna eventually bite you, because when my hat was being hypnotized, she had a childhood friend that her dad gave her, but this was a prey that was going to be used later for her to practice on sucking blood. And Mai didn't do it at first because that was her childhood friend, but she does end up eventually. But the dad abuses her by starving her and exposing her to the sun, so she eventually does bite the girl and suck her blood. So Chihiro thinks about it, and she's like, you know what, Banba, she's gonna end up biting you one of these days, and you better be prepared for that. And Banba is shown happily walking away with Mai, and that's where it ends. So it's set up perfectly, absolutely perfectly for a season 2. Will it happen? I think Oshi said he would do it. I think he said he was open to do it, but I don't know, because this anime is bombing really bad because people don't understand it, or they're looking for the wrong things, or they're taking it way too seriously when it's a comedy, which is the point I was making in the beginning. But it is perfectly set up for a season 2, and I hope that it has a season 2. This one's a 9 out of 10 for me. It accomplishes its goal, which is to be a good comedy, and it was hilarious. I was laughing throughout the whole thing. It was just a great comedy show for me, and I'm surprised because I thought One Direct Priority or Batgirl would finish first, because the episodes kind of got put on hiatus and nobody knew when they were going to come out. Then we had a date where they did, and so Vlad Love is the first of the 3 winter animes that I watched that ended already, and it was great. I liked it. One Direct Priority should be next, and it's about to end, and then Batgirl is going to go for a while. But that's Vlad Love. I have a video on episodes 1 through 6 if you want to hear me talk about those first 6 episodes. And it was hilarious and it was great, and I enjoyed it. Oshi, the master Oshi, has done it again.